everybody, my name is Moss, and in this video I'm going to show you how to perform real-time testing on the Lambdatest platform. Real-time testing on Lambdatest allows you to perform live interactive testing of your app or website on more than 2,000 browsers and operating systems. These interactive test sessions are executed on emulators, simulators, virtual machines, and even real devices, which I'll cover in a later video, that are hosted on the Lambdatest platform. In addition to live interactive test sessions, real-time testing offers a number of other features. So let's take a closer look at the features of real-time testing. So the first step is to log into our Lambdatest account. As you can see, I'm already signed in, but if you haven't, go ahead and sign in now. Now, once you sign in, you're taken to the dashboard, which is the home page. And what we're going to explore today is real-time testing, which can be found here on the left-hand side menu under real-time testing. So go ahead and select real-time testing. Now, real-time testing on emulators, simulators, and virtual machines is separate from real-time testing on real physical devices. If I expand the left-hand side menu, you can see real-time testing, but then directly below it, we have real device. And under real device, that's separated into real-time testing on a real device and app automation testing on a real device. In this video, we'll focus on performing real-time testing only on emulators, simulators, and virtual machines. And from the real-time testing page, we can perform both browser testing and app testing, as you can see here. And on the app testing page, you can see this message that says you are testing on emulators and simulators. And for browser-based testing on desktop, when you start a session, you're spinning up a virtual machine behind the scenes and testing on that virtual machine. So let's start with browser-based testing. So I'm going to select browser testing. And at the top here, we would place our target URL that we would like to perform real-time testing on. So here, let's enter YouTube as an example. After entering the target URL, I can optionally select a tunnel, a Lambdatest tunnel, and the tunnel program basically allows me to perform testing on locally hosted websites. So if you're a developer who's testing a new feature and you're running your website locally on like localhost port 8080, when you run the tunnel program, you're allowing Lambdatest to make a connection to your dev machine and access localhost port 8080. So I'll talk more about configuring the Lambda tunnel app later on. Once you enter the target URL and optionally select a tunnel, you can then begin configuring the machine that will be testing your website. So right now I have a desktop machine selected. I also have Chrome selected as the browser, but I could select a different browser if I wanted to. And once I select a browser, I can then select a browser version. Then I can also select the operating system that I want to run on. And finally, I can select a target resolution. And the same can be done for a mobile platform as well. So if I select mobile here, I can then select either Android or iOS. I can then select the brand of the device, and then select the device or operating system, and finally select the target browser. Now, in addition to selecting either a mobile browser or a desktop browser, I can also look at the history of configurations that I've used in prior test sessions. From this page, I can open a new test session using a configuration that I previously used. And the Favorites tab lists favorited configurations, so these might be test configurations that you use very often. If I wanted to add a test session from my recent configurations to the favorites list, I can simply navigate to the recents list and then select this star in the upper right hand corner of the configuration, and that will add it to my favorite list. Now going back to the desktop browser, once I've selected a target configuration, I can simply select the start button. And let's use lambdatest.com as our first test website. So I'm going to enter lambdatest.com, and then I'm going to select start. And once I select start, it fires up a virtual machine with my configuration that I previously selected on the last page. So now we're on the Lambdatest website inside a virtual machine that's running our desired configuration. And I can explore the website and do manual testing the same as I would locally on my local machine. Now on the left-hand side, we have this control bar, and I can minimize the control bar by just selecting this button, and I can also move the control bar to wherever I need it. In the first item of the control bar, I can actually switch the configuration that I'm currently running, and I can also add the current configuration to my favorites list. So from here, if I select switch, it'll bring up the menu that allows me to select whether it's a mobile browser or a desktop browser, and the same options that we saw on the previous page. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that. And below the configuration section, we can select Mark as Bug to create a new screenshot. So I'm going to select Mark as Bug, and this generates a new screenshot. Now from this page, I can actually edit the screenshot and highlight if I find a particular bug on one of the elements of the page, I can highlight that bug using these annotations. So right now I have a square annotation selected, but I could also create a circle annotation, as well as a straight line, and I can do a freeform annotation as well. And you can also do a text annotation as well. If I select text, I can click anywhere on the screen and then enter text. And I can also change the color of the annotations as well. So from this palette section, I can select a particular color, and then when I create a new annotation, it'll be the desired color. Finally, to remove annotations, I can use either the undo button or I can use the eraser to remove just certain parts of an annotation. Down below the screenshot, you can see here it gives me the configuration that I was using in this test session. And then I can also share this screenshot with other people using their email IDs, or I can get a shareable link that I could just copy and then share via email or some sort of messaging app. I can also give the link an expiration date, which right now is set to 7 days, but that could be set all the way to 1 month, and then I can send the screenshot. Next to the share icon, I can also download this screenshot locally to my machine as well. And then we have the Mark as Bug button, and this allows us to send this screenshot to an external tool. So when I select Mark as Bug, it will show a form, and then it should also prompt you to integrate with other tools. So you can see here we can integrate with tools like Jira and Slack. And when we integrate with Jira, for instance, we can create a Jira issue based off of this screenshot, or we can send this screenshot to Slack. If I select more integrations, you can see a page with all of the apps listed that you can integrate with your Lambdatest account. So they're categorized by like bug tracker, project management, communication like Slack and Teams, etc. So in this case, I'm not going to integrate any of those tools. So I'm going to exit out of this prompt. And then I have this form here where I can fill out information for the bug that is about to be created. So I can assign this bug to myself or someone on my team. I can select what type of issue this is. I can set the issue priority. And then I can provide a summary and description of the bug. And once I select Create Issue, this will create an issue that shows up in the Lambdatest issue tracker, and I'll show that in a little bit. If I don't want to create a bug from this issue, I can also simply save the screenshot by selecting Save. So I'm going to select Save. And after saving the screenshot, if I navigate over here to the control bar and select Gallery, I'll be able to see the screenshots that I've previously created. And I get most of the same options that I have in the Mark as Bug page, like download the screenshot or I can select mark as bug, and I can also share the screenshot as well. In addition to screenshots, you can see here that there's also videos. And right now there have been no videos that were recorded. But if I wanted to create a new video recording from this test session, I can select the camera here. So if I select video, it will begin recording this session. And then when I'm done recording, I can simply select the button again and it will stop recording. And once I stop recording, it will process the video. And once it has processed the video, it will show up in the videos list under the gallery. Under the gallery, I can also switch resolutions without ending the current test session. So right now I'm at 1920 by 1080. If I selected, let's say 1280 by 1024 and select apply, it will immediately change the resolution without ending the test session. And then under resolutions, we have projects. Projects are a way to organize test sessions and the artifacts that are produced from those test sessions, like screenshots and video. Right now, I've only created one project in my Lambdatest account, but if I wanted to save this test session to a different project, I would select the dropdown and select the target project, as well as the target version of that project. So once I select save, it will associate this test session with that target project. And under the projects button, we have the test session settings. The first option in settings is the idle timeout limit. And this is the timeout period of the test session. So if I were to set it to 5 minutes, which is the default value, then after 5 minutes of idle activity in this test session, the test session will automatically close. I can also adjust the device scale. So if I select scale, I can select up to 150%, and that will adjust the scale. The next option is a time zone selection. So from here, I can adjust the time zone of the client that's accessing the target website. Along with the time zone, we can also specify a specific country, so we can change the location of the client from this dropdown. So I can select a target country. And then for the final option in settings, we have accessibility. And this is a newer feature that's recently been released. This gives you the screen reader, which provides spoken description of the web page for accessibility testing. So if you have audio enabled on your system, then once you select the screen reader checkbox, a tone will play, and after the tone plays, it begins reading the web page. And then the final button after the settings button is end session. So this will end the current test session. However, before I end the session, I did want to highlight another feature. If we were to navigate to YouTube, for instance, or if your website has video and audio playing, that audio is played in the test session. So if I were to navigate to the Lambdatest YouTube channel, for instance, when a video plays on the YouTube channel, the audio is audible in the test session. And it might be hard to hear in this case over this recording, but I encourage you to try this out in your own test session as well. So with that, let's go ahead and end this current session. Now I'd like to also highlight mobile browser testing as well. So I'm going to select mobile, and I'll leave the platform as Android. I'll select OnePlus, and we'll do OnePlus 9 and then Google Chrome. And then I'll start the session. So now you can see we have our target device, and it opens up the device's browser and the target URL that we entered. And we have the control bar here on the left-hand side, similar as we did in the desktop browser version. We can also switch the configuration of the test session like we did with the desktop browser-based session. We can create a screenshot or a video recording, and then we can also view the gallery, which contains screenshots and recordings from this session. But then our options start to diverge from the desktop browser testing, and we have the Dev Tools button. So if I select Dev Tools, it brings up the Dev Tools. I can see elements, the console, and then I could also analyze network traffic. In addition to network, you also have some other options as well. Now, if I toggle DevTools off, below DevTools, we have the rotate option. So this will rotate the device orientation. And then similar to the desktop browser, we have the projects option where we can save the details of this test session to a particular project. And then under settings, we have some divergence from the desktop browser-based testing. We're still able to select an idle timeout limit, a time zone, and we can change the client location. But we do have two additional options here. That is network throttling and keyboard input. Network throttling allows you to test your website under different network conditions. So for instance, from this drop-down menu, I can select 4G, 5G, and then I can even select different bandwidth speeds like slow and fast 3G. And if these options didn't meet my requirements, I could also create a custom profile for network throttling. And I could call this my default profile. And then I can specify the download, upload speeds, and then the latency. And then the last option here is selecting the keyboard input. I can specify different languages for the keyboard input. Okay, so mobile browser testing is somewhat similar in options to the desktop browser testing, but it does have some additional features here. So I'm going to go ahead and select End Test Session. So now that we're comfortable with the options in real-time browser testing, I wanted to take a look at the pages in the left-hand side menu here that are associated with the test sessions that we just completed. So during the first test session, I talked about projects and how screenshots and recordings are associated with projects. We also created an issue and we created screenshots and recordings from that test session. So where would I go in order to access the artifacts that are associated with that test session? Well, the first thing that we have is the projects page. So if I select projects, it gives me a page that lists all of the projects. So right now I only have one project called the test project, and I have one version of that project, and I can add additional versions to this project here. And then I can also add new projects by clicking this button. And then we have the issue tracker page. So if I navigate to issue tracker, it'll bring me to a page that shows all of the bugs that I previously created in prior test sessions. And from this list, we can filter the issues on the issue fields like the assignee, the status of the issue, the test type, and the priority of the issue. And we can also reproduce this issue using a link that will bring up the same configuration that we used when we found this particular issue. If I scroll down further in the issue, it will show any associated media, which in this case is a screenshot that I can download. And then finally, if we wanted to access the logs of a real-time test session, I can select test logs from the left-hand side menu. The test logs are associated with a particular test session, and they're also associated with a project. You can see under the test details here, we have this particular test log is associated with the test project, which allows us to filter test logs on a particular project. So if I select test project, it will give me all of the test logs that are associated with the test project. So let's navigate back to the real-time testing page. What we've covered in this video is real-time browser testing on both desktop browsers and mobile browsers. But we can also perform real-time app testing on iOS and Android emulators and simulators, as well as real-time testing on real devices. But I'm going to cover those features in future videos. The last thing that I want to demonstrate is testing your locally hosted website. Earlier in the tutorial, I mentioned using the Lambda Tunnel app in order to test your locally hosted website. You can either run the Lambda Tunnel as a desktop app or a command line run app. What I'll demonstrate here is the desktop app on my Linux machine. I currently have a website running on my local machine on port 8080. So if I navigate to localhost at 8080, I have this Lambdatest sample app, and it's basically a to-do app where I can check off items and add additional items. If I wanted to perform real-time testing on a locally hosted website, what I would do is configure a new tunnel. So if I go up here to the top right and select Configure Tunnel, then I will select the desktop app instead of the command line app. After selecting the desktop app, I'll select Download Tunnel app. I'll click Save File. And now that that's downloaded to my Downloads folder, I'm going to open up a new terminal, and I'm going to copy the program from the Downloads folder to my home directory, but you can move it to whatever target directory that you prefer. And after moving it to the home directory, I need to make it an executable file, so I'm going to chmod +x underpass. And now I can run the underpass program. When the program starts, it prompts you for the username and access key for your Lambdatest account, and then you can also provide a tunnel name. So retrieving the username and access key is pretty simple. You should know your username, but your access key you can access by selecting the command line option here, and it actually gives you your access key here. So I can simply copy this value, either the whole command or just the access key itself, and paste that into the key field here. And then I'll provide my username. And after providing that information, I can also perform some advanced configuration on the tunnel. For instance, the info API port, which allows me to get some additional information about the tunnel. But I won't change any of the advanced configuration, and I'm going to select launch. And as you can see here, the status is currently running, and then I have some more advanced information about the tunnel as well. And from here, I can also stop the tunnel. So I'm going to navigate back to my Lambdatest account, and I'm going to refresh. And as you can see in the top right, it says tunnel active 1. And then under the tunnel drop-down selection, I now have my tunnel listed in this drop-down menu. So I'm going to update the URL from Lambdatest to localhost port 8080. And I'll select desktop browser, and we'll just select the options that are selected here. And then I'm going to select start session. And here you can see that we're connected to localhost 8080, and we can see the sample to-do app that I showed you on my local Linux machine, and we're running this on a Windows VM. And I can perform interactive testing similar to how I was performing interactive testing with lambdatest.com and other publicly hosted websites. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end this test session. And I'm also going to close the tunnel, so I'm going to open up Underpass, and then I'll select Stop, and that should close the tunnel. And if I refresh here, we shouldn't see that tunnel active anymore. And we don't. So that pretty much wraps up real-time browser testing. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.